Hello, how are you? Jumping on, sharing my live vulnerability or my live storytelling time to you. I think storytelling is really, really important. It helps us to get to know each other and it helps us to really get our stories out there because our stories are really what molds us. And I know for myself, by telling my story more, then I actually get to know myself more. Otherwise, sometimes I can just think, oh, that just happened. But when I share my story with others and get some feedback, it can really have an impact on myself as well as the other person. So, the story I want to share with you today is about the way that I birthed my children. And I have 3 children, and I birthed them all at home unassisted. So I had 3 unassisted home births. Now I made a decision when I was pregnant with my first daughter. I lived in a very rural area. I lived in the hinterland of northern New South Wales and in Australia, and there was a very limited amount of midwives, home birth midwives at the time, and we also lived about at least an hour's drive from the nearest hospital. And so I had to make a decision quite early on in the pregnancy. I either took on the one midwife in the area who I didn't really connect with on a really deep level. I was at the time of I was pregnant with my first daughter. I was very wild. I'd been traveling around a lot, and I was very earth-based and very raw, and very sensitive to who was around me. So I came back, settled down, lived in this rustic old shack right by a creek, and decided that this is where I want to have my baby. So I did go looking around, and the only midwife there, beautiful woman, but very fast paced, and I just felt a lot more. I felt like possibly I wouldn't be heard or wouldn't be able to go into that rhythm that I thought that I needed to be in at giving birth. So there wasn't a lot of other options around. I either checked in with the hospital and got to a point where I could drive, and I had to drive all the way there when I went into labour. So I decided I'm going to free birth. I'm going to take on the full responsibility of birthing at home. And so I made a plan, and I got everything prepared, and I had certain friends that I thought would be really supportive for me. And I actually went, yeah, and I lost my train of thought. Oh, but yeah, so I had friends who were going to be supportive for me. I discussed with them my fears, and everything got, like turned upside down before the birth. So we had a lot of communication. And that was really important to me, that I knew who was going to be at the birth was going to be fully right there. We even talked about what ifs and all different kinds of things. If fear arises, if problems occur, what do we do? And yes, I birthed my daughter at home. We had no power there. We had, I don't even know if we had running water at the time. We lived very rustic, and I loved it. I was at the river all the time. I was at the creek. I used to lie in the creek when I was pregnant and let the water just flow over my baby and my body. And it was, yeah, I didn't need for much. And I had the most incredible birth. I gave birth from start to end in 4 hours, and it was very non-complicated and very liberating and very tribal, rootsy, earthy, raw, and it was beautiful. And yeah, I don't think I went out for nearly 2 weeks with my first daughter. We just walked the land and had everything I need brought to me, and it was really, really, I wouldn't do it any other way. And then so my other 2 children were a little bit of a different situation I was in, but I also lived in a very simple way, always lived off-grid, lived in different places with all my kids. I moved around at the time, but lived off-grid, which meaning living without any mains power with all of them. And I took on the same decision making for my second one and also my third one. And the interesting thing is that I had more fear in me with my second and then my third child because of my experience and watching other people and different complications that I'd seen in the whole birthing scene at the time, and I had to work through a lot more. But in general, I'm not going to go into it too much, but in general, I had two other very successful home births, all between 4 to 6 hours each, all very empowering and very raw and very natural births, supported by women friends who believed in me and believed in the power of giving birth. Now, I know that, there's lots of reasons I want to share this, because my births are really the most empowering times of my life. They've been the most biggest teachers of my life of how to actually move through a fear. And there's a section in birth which we call transition, and it's the point between where we're moving along and doing everything and opening, and we get to a point as a woman where you think, I can't do this anymore. The pain is in an excruciating time, and the exhaustion's kicking in, and a woman will say, I cannot do this anymore. And this is called transition. And I'd read a lot about transition before my births, and I knew this stage. And after that, the birth is out, because most of the hard work's been done. Now, I've reflected, I use transition for a lot of things in my life. You put in so much work, you might relate to this, you put in so much work towards something new, and it's like a birthing process. To me, the birthing process I use over and over and over again in my life for something new that I'm trying to achieve. And so I get to a point where I've grown the baby, it's fully inside me, I'm big, I'm bursting, I'm starting to birth, and then my body goes, I can't do this. In anything, I can't do this. I'm not, or all the insecurities can come up. I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I can't stand the pain of letting go, all that kind of stuff. So then it happens, and the birth is actually the easiest, most empowering, most simple part of it all, because it's already all done. So that's been a gift for me, that going into transition. And I know I've been always feel like I'm wanting to take on new things in life, and I can relate it right back to right now, which is me on this new business journey of my online business, where I'm actually birthing a new level of financial freedom, where I don't want to be a slave anymore to converting time for money. So, okay, I only get money if I work this hour, I only get money if I work that hour. I'm actually reaching financial freedom in a way that I haven't actually experienced before. Just as before I had babies, I hadn't actually given birth before, but I knew in myself, I knew deeply in myself through all of my births that if a baby could get into me and if a baby could grow, then of course it's going to come out in the natural form, because that's a miracle. That's the miracle of nature. If I just put myself out of the way, then the forces of nature were going to do the right thing, and the baby would come out. So I can relate that to what I'm going through now with this birthing process of a new business. And I've had so much resistance come up for me, thinking, I can't do this. Why do I want to work on? I'm not good enough. I don't know how to share my story. I don't know how to stand up. All these doubts and fears. But I think if this was presented to me, and if is my birthright to be free and abundant, financially abundant on all levels, then I should just get out of the way and let the process happen. Do all the work is needed, and then just step back and allow my vessel, and which is connected to the source, of the universe, or the magician who's just created absolutely everything in this planet, to be able to just let go and let the birth take place. So that's where I am at right now with my new business. I'm putting in so much work and effort, and I'm stepping up and releasing as many old negative patterns as I can possibly get myself around, and then just getting out of the way. So there's great power in birth, and birthing can be related to anything in our lives that we're going through, because when we birth, we have to let something die. Something is being grown and something is gestating, and it takes time. New projects and new things that actually take time to gestate and time to be brewed, and then they birth. And when they birth, it's actually a miracle, because it's just new life again and again and again. So we're constantly birthing, and birthing means dying on some level. And I remember when I had my first daughter, I really clearly, very distinctively went through a stage where I felt my maiden die and my mother born, and all these different traits were revealed in me that I didn't have any idea about them before I gave birth. It was a maiden, and I thought a certain way, I felt a certain way, I vibed a certain way, and when I turned into a mother, I actually lost the holder, just spun out. And yeah, by becoming a mother, I thought differently. My vibration was different, everything was different, and that was a natural occurrence. So by choosing to go through a death process, a new birth can happen, and we can change ourselves again and again and again, and we can birth ourselves again and again and again. So my gift to you today is to share my story of how I birthed, and some would say that that's very risky and against all odds, because in the modern world, in the modern Western world, there is a lot of emphasis on very heavy checkups and what ifs, and it's very scientific. Birth turned into a science, and really, it's not. It's deep down. It's an intuition. So yeah, we can birth again and again and again things that we really dream that we can do, just by believing in ourselves, and just by uncovering all aspects of fear. If you uncover all aspects of fear, what is left but true love? And in true love is miracle, is absolute miracle and absolute potential, because the whole of our world is birthed out of true love. We are true love. So if we can use that essence of true love to birth anything new in our lives, we will succeed. We will succeed in whatever it is that we want to birth. So I'll leave you with that. Many blessings.